Okay, everyone. So, in the previous class, I was not able to complete this past paper of November 2021. So, in this class, inshallah, we're going to try our best to cover this and complete this. This is not going to be as long as the previous one. So, yeah. So, an airplane departs from Seoul to Tokyo at 7 with an average speed of 500. At the same time, another airplane departs from Tokyo to Seoul with an average speed of 436. Okay. Now, if we were to formulate equations, how would we do it? Look, you can be doing it in two ways, right? So you can say that distance equals speed multiplied by time, right? As you know, because speed equals distance divided by time. So distance equals speed multiplied by time, right? Um, and we can also say that distance should be equal to speed of 500 multiplied by time if we were to look at with the reference of the flight from Seoul to Tokyo. And or if you were to look at from the reference of the flight from Tokyo to Seoul, it can be distance equals 436 multiplied by t, right? Both of the equations can be made in this way. But what we are forgetting about is that half of the distance, no, not exactly half of the distance, 11,000, sorry, 1,170 kilometers is the total different distance, right? So it must be said that distance that has been traveled is equal to the total distance minus 500 t, and we know that d equals 436t, right? So I can say that 436t equals 1170 minus 500t. So we have to find the value of t in this case, so that this becomes 936t equals 1170, and therefore the value of t is going to be 1170 divided by 936. So if you were to calculate it, we are going to get an answer of t equals 1.25. Now, this is the value of time that we know of. Okay, but once again, this is basically the time in hours. So it takes 1.25 hours to reach. A mistake that most students would do is that they would consider 1 hour as, so, okay, now let's do the conversions. Look, 15 minutes, uh, 1.25 hours is x, and 1 hour is, in fact, no, let's not do it like this. Look, you should know that basically 0.25 of an hour is equal to 15 minutes. Okay, 0.25 of an hour is equal to 15 minutes. So we can say that if it is 1.25 hours it has been taken, so it's essentially 1 hour and 15 minutes. 1 hour and 15 minutes. Have I started the recording? Yes, I have. So 1 hour and 15 minutes has been taken. So the time or the point of vertical alignment is supposed to be 8:15 a.m. or p.m. or whatever the time is. Okay. So this is how you're supposed to solve this question. To avoid collision, the minimum vertical distance between two airplanes must be 300. We read this at the start of the question. The path f of x and h of x are parallel. Okay. Which means that the gradient of f of x and h of x should be equal to each other, right? Okay. Find the equation of h of x. Hmm. So the gradient, as you know, that the gradient is supposed to be equal to each other, right? Because they're both parallel to each other. So this is f of x and this is h of x. F of x, the equation of f of x is 60x simply. And you know that the equation of a line is y equals mx plus c. So there is no plus c because the point is intersecting at 0 comma 0 here, but m's value is going to be 60, right? Okay, if the value of m is 60, so we know that the gradient is 60. What about the y-intercept? How do we solve that one? What about the value of x, and what about the value of plus c? Let's see what we can do in this regard. Hmm. This is what needs to be seen. Okay, we can see that basically g of x has an equation of 2400, which means that this line is supposed to be of y equals to 2400. Okay, y equals to 2400. This is what it means. And the domain has been given as positive 80. Okay, so this is the question solved, completely solved. So we can say that basically 2400, because this is where g of x ends, this is where g of x ends and h of x starts, right? So 2400 equals 60 into 80 plus c, as that is 80 is the domain, right? So if you were to solve the value for c, what would you get? 2400 divided by 60 times 80 equals c. Well, finding the value of c is not that important, and I'll tell you why. 60 times 80 is 4800. So yeah, c is supposed to be, in this case, it's supposed to be 1 by 2. But it's not important. Why is it not important? Because I'll explain. Look, here in this case, we have h of x, right? We have h of x which is parallel to f of x. You all should know that 2400 is supposed to be the value where g of x ends and h of x starts. So simply, you all can write the equation in this way. h of x equals 60x minus 2400, right? This can be solved. So this is going to be the correct answer. You don't have to solve that question. You just have to find the equation. Okay, so I was initially solving the question by putting in 80. We didn't have to. We just had to prove it because this is the only part of the work. Well, how did we have to prove it? This is the ending point of g of x and the starting point of h of x. This g of x ends at 2400. So 2400 is the y value, not of h of x but of g of x. But we know that they are both um, like h of x and f of x are parallel to each other, so they're supposed to be having the same gradient. So that's how we solved it. Deduce the airplanes are at a safe vertical distance point. Okay, vertical distance point. So it says the minimum vertical distance between two airplanes must be 300 meters. So whatever value we have, it should be more than 300. Hmm. So basically, this distance that we see here, that should be more than 300 is what it means. Okay, p of x is given a domain of 233 to 700. Q of x is given as minus 40x plus 39580. Okay, what do we do is that let's try to substitute the value of the minimum domain, which is 700, into this equation. Let's first try to do that. Q of x equals minus 40 into 700 plus 39,580. So what does q of x become? Minus 40 to 700 plus 39580. This becomes 11,580. This becomes 11,580. Okay, now what? Since um, P of x is also 11,580, and look, this is the distance, right? This is the point. P of x is also supposed to be the same value as Q of x here, 11,580. If we were to find the difference between 12,000 minus 11,580, we would get an answer of 420. And 420 is more than 300. The minimum distance of 300 must be observed. 420 is more than 300, so we can automatically deduce that since 420 is more than 300, so we have automatically solved the question. Okay, I hope this part is clear to all of you. So we're done with question number 6 as well. Okay, there's no need to read it right now. This is just going to cost you all a lot of time. Okay, let's try to start reading it from here. They had the following constraints. Um, the total weight of the supplies was not more than 1200 pounds. They needed at least 7 water barrels. The number of water barrels was at most twice the number of food barrels. Okay, I think we might have to read it somewhat. Okay, supply food and water. Hmm. Okay, so this is basically the mathematical part is what is important. Okay, so they had to supply food and water, but they had a few constraints. The total weight of the supplies was not more than 1200 pounds. They needed at least 7 barrels of water. The number of water barrels was at most, not at least, at most twice the number of food barrels. Select the 3 inequalities that satisfy the constraints above. Identify the region that satisfies the constraints above by dragging the region icon into the correct place on the graph. F represents the number of food barrels and W represents the number of water barrels. Hmm. Okay, this is quite interesting. Okay, let's talk about the 3 inequalities first. It says that water should be having at least more than 7 barrels, right? So, in case of water, it should be more than 7 barrels, right? So, this is going to be our first answer. This one. So, you have to just write down the constraint in the form of an equation. That's all that you have to do. Okay. Mm, then it says, what else was the constraint? The number of water barrels was at most twice the number of the food barrels. This can be written as this one. W is lesser than or equal to 2F. And the first constraint, I think it should be done in order directly. I don't know if that is important. So, oops, I can do that as well. Nice, but I don't want to. Just have to move it up and down. So the first constraint was the total weight of the supplies was not more, which means less than 1200 pounds. So less than 1200 pounds means this one. 30 plus 44W is lesser than or equal to 1200. So yeah, these 3 would be the answers. Select the three inequalities that satisfy. Identify the region that satisfy the constraints above by dragging the region icon into the correct place on the graph. Interesting. Mm. Oh, acha. So here it says W should be, let's start from this one. W should be lesser than or equal to 2f. Lesser than or equal to 2f means that, for example, let's say W is 7, it should be lesser than or equal to 2 times 3.5. So it would be the region above this line. So this region cannot be considered. These questions are quite difficult, honestly. The previous one and the one of the silo, which we're not able to attempt because I do not have the option of, you know, interactive media. Unfortunately, I'll just try to do something for it. And even if I do something, you see the constraint is that I'm not able to record. Then that's the problem, right? Okay, W is greater than or equal to 7. W is greater than or equal to 7. It's supposed to be the region between here, I think. This region is the one that I'm thinking would be possible. F represents the number of food barrels and W represents number of water barrels. Did they specify any sort of axes? Nope, they did not specify any sort of axes. This is interesting. We'll consider W as Y and F as X. Okay, it has to be done this way. W will be considered as Y and F will be considered as X. So we can write it like this: 44W is lesser than or equal to 1200 minus 30F. And what else? If we were to substitute the value of W is Y, so let's say this is W, this is F. Are we going to have an answer of lesser than or equal to 1200? Let me check. 30 multiplied by 10.7 plus 44 multiplied by 20.34. We are having an answer of more than 1200. So more than 1200 means it would be the region below this. So this is going to be the region. I know this was a very difficult question, but you know your idea and your concepts regarding shading of inequalities should be really extraordinary to solve a question like this. Okay, so be careful. Using the information on the graph above, find the maximum weight of food and water the wagon can carry. The maximum weight. Let's check. How could you solve for the maximum weight? Wait, the maximum weight is supposed to be this one, I think, or no? Yeah, this is a quite frustrating question. I don't know why. Let's take the lesser values of each other. So 10 and 20, let's say. So if you were to solve it, maximum is 10.17, right? So let's say if you were to take 10, so 10 multiplied by 30 plus 20 multiplied by 44, the ones that was present in the question, let me check. 10 multiplied by 30 plus 20 multiplied by 44, this becomes 1180. So in reality, 1180 is the maximum weight of food and water that the wagon can carry. 1200 is just a maximum, uh, some sort of a margin of error, but 1180 is in reality the maximum value that it can change. Hmm. Okay. To access the Cimarron route, which is C, the family had to cross the Mississippi River from A. Okay. Calculate the distance from B to C. This distance. I think this can be done through sine rule, perhaps, because the pair of angle and side is given and there is one pair which is not given. So we can write, let's say, we have to calculate BC, right? This one. So I can say sine of x. No, no, no. Sorry, sorry. Not the angle. X over sine of 53 equals 1.25 over sine of 90. I think sine of 90 is 1. So wait a second. I was to put the value on the calculator. So we would get 1.25 multiplied by sine of 53. Yep, that is correct. So 1.25 multiplied by sine of 53, 0.998, I think. So yeah, that would be our method to solve the question. Oh, okay, yeah. And x equals 0.998. Hence, determine how far the family traveled to get from A to the start of the Cimarron route. Whenever it says hence, so you should use the previous part as an answer. So 0.998 is this region. Determine how far the family traveled to get from A to the start of the Cimarron. This value is what needs to be determined, I guess. Apparently, I think so. It looks like that. Yeah. So basically, this one. This is, let's say, this is y. So you can write it as 0.998 squared plus y squared equals 1.25 squared. Y squared equals 1.25 squared minus 0.998 squared. Do it. 1.25 squared minus 0.998 squared. So this becomes 0.75. Okay, this becomes 0.75. Okay, let's move forward. Oh, this question is not finishing, man. Okay, by the way, for the last question, for the sequences questions, I'm going to have another series. Okay, so the sequences question is not going to be present here. I'm not going to be solving the sequences question in this class. So for that, because that is the question which only the justification part is what confuses most of the students. So for that, I'm going to have another series, a complete series of sequence questions. Okay, Family Fry Family Fry chose the Cimarron route. A summary of their journey is illustrated in the cumulative frequency curve below. However, some of the data has been lost. Number of days n and distance traveled d in miles. So the number of days, the more the number of days, the more the number of miles. Apparently, yeah, that makes sense. Apparently. Mhm. Okay, what does it say? May okay. I think this is what we have to find from day 4 to day 8. From day 4 to day 8, this is one of the things that we have to apparently find. So I think From 4 to 8, it is supposed to be. Let me just zoom in a little bit to this. Oh my god. Sorry, guys, this is just, yeah, problematic for some reason. Yeah, so from 0 to 4, it's 3, which means if you were to look at it here, this comes 3, yeah. So 4 to 8 would be, no, I just took it way above. I did not even started from the right part. 9, I think. Yeah, it makes sense, honestly. It does look like it. Maybe 8. Yeah, it's 9. Okay, 9 is the right answer. I just have to zoom out, and yeah, let's go now. Okay, they have given the same. Oh, okay, so this graph is going to be more authentic, close to the real value. So possibly, oh, here it looks 10. And if we were to start it from 6, we get an answer of 6 as well. Okay, this is quite confusing. Did they just magnify it apparently? Let's solve the rest of the parts first, okay? Measures of central tendency for the distance traveled by the family fry. Okay, so first thing is the modal class. Modal is the most repeated value, right? So most repeated is simply 8 to 12. So 8 to 12 would be the right answer. Estimate for the median. The median would be, you know that there are 20 of them, right? 20 is the total number of miles that of distance that the family has traveled, and the total number of days that they have traveled is 30. Not even 30, in fact. I can extend a line directly from here. I don't know why am I not trying this. 26, which means all of these numbers should be equivalent to 26 as well, right? So let's verify our answer if we actually got 9 as the right answer. So 3 plus x plus 12 plus 3 plus 1 equals to 26, and x plus 19 equals 20. Oh, x should have been 7. Okay, this is how we're supposed to solve it. You see, that's why I went to the next part. X is supposed to be 7. 7 is supposed to be the answer, not 9. You see, this is how the examiner tricks you. Because if we were extrapolating the graph from here, like this, our answer was somewhere around 9 or 10. But logically, if what we should have done is that we should have taken the distance traveled in miles and the number of days in total. You see, this is how the examiner confuses you. So x should have been the value of 7. Okay. Now, estimate for the median. First, let's at least confirm this part. Total number of days was 26. So total distance traveled. Okay. Total distance traveled should be done in another method. That is when you basically what you're supposed to be doing is it. Wait a second. Okay. It's quite fascinating and quite one of the difficult papers that I've seen. Estimate for the median. The median is supposed to be 9 in this case, right? The median number of distance that it has traveled, it is supposed to be 9, and this one was supposed to be 7, right? And the estimate number of mean is 8.769. You can verify that by applying the formula of, I just calculated it right now. Um, Basically, you people might have heard of the formula of the interquartile range and the lower quartile, the upper quartile. So n plus 1 over 2 would have been the answer, right? So there are 26 days. So 26 plus 1 over 2, which is 13. And if we were to take 13 here, 11, 12, 13. Oh, this is coming down exactly at 9. Okay, this is that's why we calculate the median, right? Yeah, median was calculated through this method. Okay, estimate for the total distance traveled. Uh, Total distance traveled. How would you solve this one? Okay, so basically the total number of days that were traveled were 26 and the mean is 8.769. So we're just going to multiply 26 by 8.769 and we're going to get 227.9. So yeah, this is the total distance that has been traveled. I hope it's clear to all of you. Analyze the routes taken by the two families. In your answer, you should consider three relevant factors. Central tendency, okay. Total distance and the number of days. The degree of accuracy, similarities and differences between the two routes, okay. The factors is by far the easier part. So like factors is, this might be a 10-mark question. Number of days, and you see amount of food, and you can talk about natural factors as well, right? For example, uh, there can be some sort of threats or at one specific way, although they've never talked about it. But yeah, you can talk about landscape. Okay, so these are the three factors. Measure the central tendency for each route. Okay, so we know that if we were to calculate the central tendency, and if we were to compare the central tendency with each other, so we have done the calculations, right? So we know that from day 4 to day 8, sorry, from 4 to 8 miles it takes 7 days, right? And the modal class is of 8 to 12, and we know that the median was 7, right? So we are done with the measures. We are already done with that. The total distance and the total number of days for each route. We're done with that as well before. Now we have to, what we have to do is we have to do a comparison between the two routes. Okay, I have to do a comparison between the two routes. So we can say that uh, the mean and the number of days and the total days, the total distance are less in the Cameron route. This question is definitely very frustrating, honestly. No, yeah, for the Cameron route, this is the frequency, right? So here we can see that the model class is this one. Ideally, what happens is that people travel 12 days, and the distance that they traveled is of 8 to 12 miles roughly. So in case of a Cameron route, as compared to the other one that was given, what was its name? um, the mountain route. Whereas in the mountain route, the difference was that the model class was 12 to 16, 13.5 was the estimate, median 12.87. It was generally a long distance that they had to travel, right? So in comparison, you should be comparing that um, the Cameron route was less. So, and how would you prove it? The mean mode or modal distance, modal value, and distance traveled in Cameron route was less, right? This is what you people can do. So this is one big major difference that they have with each other. So you can talk about the nature of these two routes as well. Because a mountainous range is like quite steep, and use words like gradient and stuff like that. So the examiner is going to give you the mark. And how do you justify the degree of accuracy in the context of this question? This makes sense, right? Because if you were to take the mountainous route, it would take you more time because mountains are quite steep, and always a chance of landsliding, highly possible, right? So that's the reason why it takes more time for the travel to be complete, right? So yeah, this is how you can accurately give a justification for your answer. Okay, so I hope you understood the questions. Like and subscribe for more.